Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. My name is Sean, and I'm delighted you're joining us for today's ESBC community webinar. Today I'm joined by Tiffany Songale, MVP, who will cover M365 Copilot Chat Prompt-a-thon. We love hearing what you guys have to say, so remember to join in on the conversation about today's webinar. Our handle is @ESBC_community and our hashtag is hashtag ESBC25. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which is updated with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access and view the Learning Hub by visiting our website, sharepointeurope.com, and clicking the Content tab at the top. Don't let the learning stop here. Continue to keep up and stay ahead by joining us for our next webinar, AI for Team Leaders, Empowering Teams with Microsoft 365 and Copilot, with Richard Harbridge, MVP. This webinar will take place today, Tuesday, 8th of April at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. CEST. For more information on this webinar, please check out www.sharepointeurope.com/register for webinars. Take your Power Platform expertise to new heights at EPBC 25. Join a full-day workshop and master everything from Power Automate to AI agents and Microsoft Copilot. You learn from top industry professionals and connect with peers who share your passion for innovation. Use code Copilot Week to save €150. But hurry, the offer is only valid until April 30th. Scan the QR code to find out more. At Falcon Europe, you can learn about Power BI, Synapse, Data Factory, Azure, Microsoft Fabric, and more. Book your super early bird sale today and save up to €700. Book now at www.sharepointeurope.com/European Microsoft Fabric Community Conference tickets. Attend Europe's premier Microsoft 365 and AI conference for incredible insights and real-world inspiration. Book today and take advantage of our super early bird sale. Use the code Copilot Week to save €150 on your ticket. This offer is only valid until April 30th. Scan the QR code to find out more and secure your space. As always, if you have any questions at any stage, please feel free to type in the chat box and Tiffany will get to it during the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you'll be notified by email when it's available. And now I'm going to pass you over to today's webinar presenter, Tiffany. Hello, Tiffany. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. All right. Let me get my share on. Thank you guys so much for being with me today. I am coming to you live from Houston, Texas. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure you all have gotten up at many hours to collaborate with people in the U.S. before, so it's my turn to get up early for you. All right, I am a modern workplace solution architect at Avanade, and I am also a motorcycle enthusiast and a senior dog mom. So if you stay until the very end, you get to see a picture of the dog. So there you go. There's your incentive. All right, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to do a quick icebreaker. We're going to do just the one definition. We'll talk about the anatomy of a prompt. We'll talk about troubleshooting a hallucination, and then we'll get into Q&A. But like Sean said, put your questions in and he's just going to interrupt me because I would rather us talk about the questions as they come up because I don't want you to forget the questions. So totally casual, jump in anytime you want. If you want to come off of mute and interrupt me, you're certainly welcome to do that as well. Just remember that we are being recorded today. All right, so let me start with how you can access Copilot. So if you're in Teams and you have a license assigned to you, then it will be one of the apps that you can search for. And then you add that in, and then you can right click on it and you can pin it to your bar so that you can always get it. If you don't have a Copilot license, fear not. You can go to copilot.microsoft.com. Now, that will just be the web. It won't be what's on your, it won't be, it won't include the content that's in your office. But if you just go to copilot.microsoft.com, you're going to be able to follow along with this. You'll need to sign in with your live ID, but there you go. So those are the two ways that I would expect you to play along today: copilot.microsoft.com or inside of Teams. Okay, now we're ready for icebreaker. So here's the prompt that I want you to use. I'm going to copy it and paste it into the chat for you. Let's see. Let's come in here. Let's come in here. Let's go to chat. And what's good about this is I want you to see about the benefit of like copying and pasting. So I like have a notepad and I just keep some prompts. I'm going to give you more prompts throughout the presentation. And so what I would tell you is if you find a prompt that you really like that works the way you want it to work, copy it and paste it into a notepad or wherever you want to put your prompt library. If you want to share it with other people, maybe create like a loop table in a Teams channel, or you can create a SharePoint list, but make sure that you're putting those prompts like into a kind of a prompt library so that you can periodically look at it and say, oh, I haven't used this one in a while. So this one's fun. So my first name is, insert your name, spell out my first name in the style of I don't know how to pronounce it, acrostic poem. For each letter, use one of my skills in the workplace. Now, the reason I give you this prompt this way is because I want to teach you how to modify a simple prompt. Probably if you just type this in and you hit enter, it's going to give you kind of like a horoscope, right? It's just going to pick some words that everybody would like. But it probably hasn't gone through the context that you think it's going to go through. It probably hasn't gone out and searched specifically for you to come up with these words. So how I would edit this prompt is I would say, the first thing is to root the prompt into a bio of myself. So start a new chat and ask it to create a bio or return a short bio of yourself. And then I want you to copy your LinkedIn profile and put it into the chat and then feed it the prompt again. So let me show you. I'm going to do this real time with you. So if I go out to my LinkedIn and then I copy my profile, and then I come into Copilot and I say, write a short bio using my LinkedIn profile. Okay, so now I've rooted the prompt into my information. And now that I've rooted it into my information, then I can go on ahead and say, okay, my first name is, and I wouldn't even probably have to tell it my first name anymore because it's rooted, but there we go. Spell out my first name, use one of my skills in the workplace. And let's see now what it comes up with. Okay, so here's my problem. It didn't give me one word for everything. It kind of gave me this paragraph. So I'm going to tell it, use one word for each letter, not a paragraph. So what I'm trying to show you here is, yeah, so see, how do you get to what you're looking for there? So it's all about rooting the prompt, and it's about telling it what you want. And then I would say it's about improving your prompt, right? So once you figure out everything you had to tell it to get what you wanted, then you use that prompt in the future. So I guess what I would start with is if anybody wants to come off of mute and just talk about what happened to you, like what happened the first time, what happened when you gave it some more context, like your LinkedIn profile.
I think the meeting is set that everyone's on mute, unfortunately, Tiffany. It's just the way that the webinar is set up.
Sorry
Sorry.
about that. So,
Just put
but
in the
if you can
chat,
put
yeah.
it in chat, yeah,
Yeah, sorry
yeah.
about that.
All right. Is anybody typing anything, or you want me to move on?
The chat working for people?
Really what the point of this was is just to get you prompting and to notice that, and I'm going to say this over and over and over again, the best way to prevent a hallucination is to give it the proper context. So the only thing I really wanted you to learn here is that we wanted to give it something like your LinkedIn profile. I would also, I could give it my resume. I could give it any other kind of information about me, as long as it's like, if you're just using the free version on the web, you'd have to give it URLs. If you're using the version inside of your license, then you could reference files that way without having a URL. All
Yeah,
right.
so someone said the chat is disabled, so if anyone has any questions, just put them in the Q&A and I can read them from there. And Tiffany can read them from there as well.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So here's the definition. I'm, pardon me, I'm talking specifically about, or we're using M365 Copilot for this particular conversation. But I want to make sure that you understand that M365 for Copilot is based on a learning language model. And I've highlighted the important parts here, right? It is text, it is words, it needs to be prompted. It's not going to do any actions for you, right? Other than to return words for you. It's not even going to do images. You have to go to designer to get images. So I guess what's important here is to just make sure that you understand it's trained on text and it will return words. If you want it to take an action, that's what all this language around Copilot agents is. An agent would then take that information and do something with it. But a large language model, all it's going to do is take your text, compare it to what it knows, and then it's going to return it into some kind of paragraph or text, however it is that you want it returned. And that's what we want to talk about. How can I get it to return it in the format that I want it to return in? All right, so let's talk about what you need in a prompt. So, and feel free, again, while we're talking, take these prompts, type them in fact, here, let me do this.
And
You
Tiffany,
can,
there's just people just saying, my web Copilot cannot access my LinkedIn profile. Why did this work for you?
interesting.
Hmm.
So see, we have our first troubleshooting thing. The best thing I can say, and again, this is going to pop up in the troubleshooting piece, is so let's see. I'm trying to figure out how I want to troubleshoot it. So because you want to start over with it. So did you start with having it return a short bio? Let's see. So I'm at copilot.microsoft.com. I think I would ask it, can you access, oh, I don't know that this will work. I've never tried it before. My LinkedIn profile. Okay, so it says I can't, but then when I give it the URL, it was able to do it. So I'm not sure how you did the prompt, but if you didn't give it the URL, then maybe this is what it said. So here is the URL. Can you write a short bio based on this. Oh, so sure enough, isn't that funny? So it's all in how I wrote that. It's all in how I wrote that prompt. And, you know, that's the thing is we're going to talk about how important it is to be patient with this. But let me see. Yeah, that is really interesting. Because, but hopefully it makes you feel better that it happened to me too. So I guess I would just say, um, uh, what information can you find about? Oh, it doesn't know who you are. You can't just say me, Tiffany Songvalet, on the internet. Oh, this is dangerous. Can you find her LinkedIn profile? Isn't that interesting? All right. Oh, but look, but it found my MVP. It found my MVP profile and it found my sessionized profile. So then, um, based on my based on her MVP profile and sessionized profile, can you write an acrostic poem based on her first name? Technology foster, I mean, it's not wrong, but this yearning for excellence is really funny. I guess there's just not very many Y names. So anyway, play around with it while we're going through the rest of it and let me know what you come up with. But just to let you know, yeah, we saw how it worked, but then if we came at it from a different angle, it didn't work, which is a great lesson to learn. So we want to give it a goal. Context is the most important thing. Reference a URL, reference, you know, you have a lot of space inside of a prompt. And so you can literally like copy whole paragraphs and put them in quotes to give it the correct context. You want to make sure that you tell it how you want it to respond. So I'm going to show you a couple of tricks for how you can get it to respond in a table versus if you can get it to respond like I said, like give me one letter, don't give me a paragraph, right? Those types of things. So we want to make sure that we're very clear with it. And then we want to give it any kind of examples or source. So in the examples we're giving you here, summarizing is the best way to route your prompt. So even if you don't want a summary of the email, or even if you don't want a summary of the document, trust me when I say that is the best way to narrow down what information it's going to use. So by giving it that context, you minimize the likelihood that it will come up with a hallucination because it doesn't have to fill in any gaps. That's what a hallucination is. If it doesn't have the right context, then it will go out and it will find things to fill in those gaps. And that may be, those things may be irrelevant or untrue. So writing a summary of something and then drafting an outline, for example, telling it to write a paragraph with so many words in it, give it a tone for the document. So for example, you can say, okay, write a paragraph summarizing, you know, what happened at ESPC conference today. And then now that you have that summary, you can take it and you can search for it deeper. So the first prompt may not be the only prompt while you learn how to iterate within the context of that prompt. But like I said, once you get what you want, then go back through and rewrite that prompt so you get what you want the first time you do it. And so what I want you to see is how large a prompt can be. It's not just an internet search. You're actually asking it to extrapolate from data, fill in some blanks, help you brainstorm the first piece of content, help you revise content that you've already created. So what's really it's really good at summarizing information. It's really good at creating information. And so you just have to remember it's text, 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 text. These prompts are only going to work for folks who have an M365 Copilot license, but these are the types of prompts that I use like when I get back from vacation. So I just want you to see what some of these are. And again, you can follow along if you want to try this. Summarize my unread Teams chats and emails where I am either at mentioned or included in the to field. So you see how specific I'm being. I don't want to summarize messages where I'm in the CC field because those aren't going to be as urgent, right? I'm coming back from vacation. I want to see what my follow-up actions are from my from emails and Teams messages where I am actually specifically being called out. And then notice what I've done. The I want a table. I want it to return a table with the following columns. So format, email or chat, from, subject or chat title, summary, and follow-up action. If you have a Copilot license, I definitely want you to have this prompt. This prompt is gold and it's fantastic. And if you try it, you will love it forever. And then what's the latest with, and you can enter a client's name. The slash though is really important. I just want you to start, again, this is only going to work if you have a M365 Copilot license, but you can put a hash in there. And when you put a hash in there, you can reference an actual person or a file, a conversation. So let me see. I have mine here.
Someone's just saying to put the prompt in the Q&A or chat. If
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
I'd say put it in the Q&A section.
Oh, you want it in the Q&A, not the chat?
Yeah, I'd say that would work
Okay.
better. I think that's everyone can access it then.
Got you. Q&A.
And then yeah, at the top, ask a question.
So ask a question. Okay.
And then everyone should get it then.
There we go. Here we go.
You.
And let me just do it with all of them, and then we'll take each one at a time. Ask a question. There we go. That way you have them.
Perfect. Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah, of course. So what you're able to do, and keep in mind, I am a one-person, this is a one-person license, so this may not work. Reference. Yeah. So what should happen when I hit that hash is it should pop up a menu that allows me to like look through tabs, discussion, files, people. So that's what that hash is for, is to reference actual specific files or people. So that's one to keep in mind too. So what you can say is, what's the latest with this client name or this person's name? Help me prepare for our next meeting. So the way that this prompt was taught to me is it was literally just help me prepare for my meeting with a person. And what's great about what that's going to do is it's going to confirm when your next meeting time is. It's going to summarize any conversations or chats you've had, and then it's going to go out and see if it can find any relevant files to say maybe before the meeting you want to review these things. So other types of files that may have been referenced in those emails or those chats. So that's a very simple one that's very effective. Create a table. So again, I love having it return tables for me. Create a table of the email attachments or links to files I received in emails and team chats last week. So again, I was coming back off of a week-long vacation. And so again, the reason that I pick on attachments is that's something that could be easily lost, right? How many times have you been looking for a file and you realize it was an attachment in your email, or it was referenced on a Teams channel? So this is my way of saying, go find those email attachments or links to files, because those things might be more pressing, right? Somebody might want me to review those things, which was why they were attaching it. Include who the file was from, what type of file it is. So again, I'm telling it what columns I want in the table, a brief description of the content. Column headings should be from, file name, description, and follow-up action. So see how specific I'm being about what I want it to return in the format I want it to return. This one's just kind of fun. What needs to be on my radar today from chats and emails from last week or from yesterday or whatever that is. This one helps you from getting things, that might fall through the cracks. Again, how many times does somebody, hit reply all to an email and it's like, just putting this at the top of your inbox. So this is what's really good for you to have those kinds of things. What needs to be on my radar. It seems to like that kind of information.
Tiffany, there's a question in, if that's okay.
Oh, of course.
So Adrian's just wondering, how far back will Copilot look when summarizing emails and chats after using it for the first time returning from vacation?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because what I try to do is I try to minimize the context. So that's why I use unread, or that's why I tell it to just look at the past 7 days or last week, because I know it won't go through everything. It will stop. I just don't know how I don't know. But if you here's the thing. I know it will go find old files. So I assume it will go find old emails. But if you have emails that are 7 years old, I don't think it's going to go back that far. So that is a great question for Copilot. Ask it, how far do you go back when I ask you for a summary of my email? Any other questions?
No, none so far. No, that's all so far.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
I love the questions. Keep them coming. Okay, so this is just me saying I've been on vacation for the last 7 days. What are the big things I may have missed? So that's where it's going to actually go into those things where I was CC'd. It's just going to look more holistically, but again, over the last 7 days. And notice that I didn't tell it. I didn't root this in any kind of context. So this isn't the best prompt, but it's a great prompt to learn on, to see how you start with a simple prompt and then you work within the context to get what you want. And then you rewrite that prompt and you try it again inside of a new chat to see if you get what you want the first time. All right, so this one is worth spending some time on here, and I have examples for these. So the most basic prompt is, and I'm telling you, I use this for birthday cards. I use it for thank you cards, sympathy cards. It does really well. And a sympathy card is one of those things you never know what to say. And so maybe you don't send the card because you don't know what to say. This is a really great way to use Copilot to help you say hard things, right? So write a sympathy note to a friend who's just lost their mother to cancer. A prompt that gives you an example response. So this is what I do when I'm like, give it to me in a table. So, but let's say that you're looking for a list of names. So for example, I was looking for, we have our Pride Month in June, LGBTQ plus Pride, and I was looking for a speaker for Pride Month. And so what I was able to do is I was able to prompt it and say, give me all of the openly gay leaders or executives in the Fortune 100 or whatever. And then I would give it this answer to give me their name, their title, their company, for example. So that's a way that you can do it, right? To give me a list or to give me a table. So instructing the model to be a person. So for example, when we do our legal demonstration, we start every prompt with act as an expert contract lawyer, right? So we actually give it a prompt. So when I'm doing something, I make sure that I define who I am. Act as a Copilot MVP, right? I know who I am, but that large language model doesn't know who I am unless I root it in that context. So it can find an MVP if I tell it that I want it to act as an MVP. And so, is there a question?
No, yeah, there's actually just one came in there. Yeah. I heard that Copilot doesn't read full documents. It has some limitations of pages per document. Is this correct?
Yes, it does have limitations, and just like everything else, that limitation will get bigger and bigger and bigger. But right now, I believe it's the first 50 pages of a PDF. So if you have a PDF that's 200 pages, it will only read the first 50. I believe that's the current limitation. Um, Build conference is coming up, so just be aware of that and see every time Microsoft has a big conference, those things might change. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. But yes, right now, absolutely, it has a limit of how many pages it can consume at a time. And if you have the Copilot for M365 license internally, it can only reference 3 files at a time. So 3 files, each under 50 pages. So as weird as this sounds, let's say you've got a 200-page PDF. If you could break it up into, I guess you'd have to break it up into 4 files, right? You could do 3 of those at a time. It's not ideal. It's just the limitation of where the product is right now. So act as is very important. It roots the prompt. Tell it how you want it to format the response. So again, I want it to put it in a table, and I'm going to give it the columns that I want in the table. Chain of thought. So I love this one. This is something to keep in mind too. If you're a citizen developer, or you're not a citizen developer, but you want to be a citizen developer and you want to start writing your own workflows, but you don't know how to use Power Automate, you can say, think step by step and explain your, well, in this particular case, let me finish the example, and then we'll go back to this. But I can say, think step by step, teach me how, or think step by step, write a workflow in Power Automate to, I don't know, respond to emails with this in the subject line or whatever it is, right? So whatever kind of workflow that you want that you don't know how to do it, you can ask Copilot to do that for you. And this one, though, it is interesting. Think about, so I'm always telling it, explain your decision or explain why you chose that. So for example, in that acrostic poem, we could have said, quote your source, right? Pick a word and then tell me why you chose that word, and quote your source for why you chose that word. So it's just adding to that prompt, so that you can really just check the accuracy of it. All right, flipping the pattern. So this is interesting. This one I really love for neurodivergent folks, because a lot of times what I understand and have experienced, right, inside of neurodivergence is that sometimes that blank sheet of paper is the scariest thing, or we avoid doing a task because we don't know how to do it. I think you're going to see that if you will give those tasks to Copilot, you will find that you will maybe procrastinate a little bit less, or at least have less anxiety. You might still procrastinate, but you might have less anxiety about starting something if you can tell Copilot to ask you the questions it needs to do something for you. So keep that in mind. It's great for brainstorming. Like I'm brainstorming names of companies, you know. So what I had it do, we're starting up a podcast this year with another MVP, and I literally went out and I told it to find me like names. Like I told him what I wanted to do in this podcast, and then I said find me names with available domain, like find me available domain names. So that prevented me from having to go out to Squarespace or wherever and like type in every single, you know, sample name. It's like, no, you need to go out and do that work for me. So the tell me more. So again, I love this. Now, you know, many people are probably just doing this on YouTube. I'm not trying to take that away from you, but this idea that says, tell me how to do something. Or let's say the prompt didn't return everything that you wanted. You can literally just say, tell me more. And that could be your prompt. And then the alternative, I like this one. So it's like, here's the prompt I normally give you, right? List alternative approaches, compare and contrast them with my approach. So in this way, we're talking about there's kind of two types of prompting. There's I know what I want, give me exactly what I want. And then there's I don't really know what I want, help me figure it out. So keep in mind that those prompts about help me figure it out are sometimes more powerful than the ones where you know what you want. Any questions on this?
Yeah, there's just a question in, Tiffany. It's just, is it still possible to use Copilot in Excel without converting it into tabular format?
Oh, yes, yes. But here's what I say about Excel. If you are highly productive in Excel, you may not be impressed with Copilot for Excel right now. But if you don't know how to do a pivot table, Copilot for Excel looks like sorcery, right? Like it will change your life. So you just kind of have to keep that in mind. There are a lot of Microsoft has spent a lot of time improving Excel. So again, throughout this year, you know, give it a chance, pay attention to what those announcements are. One of the recent announcements, though, was that there's something about how Copilot can now either write or consume. I think it's consume. Well, it was probably always able to write VBA code, but I think it can now kind of consume and reason with whatever VBA codes you may already have in an Excel spreadsheet, which was kind of a huge improvement over where it was before. So you're going to see Excel improving in leaps and bounds over this next year, just based on how much time Microsoft has invested in Excel. All right, let's talk about troubleshooting. Some of this I've already given you, right? Ask for a summary first. Inside of the context, you can say, tell me more, give me more examples. That's not what I'm looking for. I can't tell you how many times I tell it that. It gives me something, and then instead of starting over with the prompt, I just stay within the context because the context is correct. The result just isn't what I wanted. So I'll say, that's not what I'm looking for, ... and then try to come at it from a different angle. What else can you find? Try again. I do try again, right? That's not what I'm looking for. Try again. From now on. So for example, if you notice that it's gone too far off track, you can say from now on, assume that you're talking to an audience of people with Copilot for M365 or M365 Copilot licenses, right? So from now on, you can literally keep it within the same context, but tell it to act as a different persona from now on. Either act as a persona or assume the audience is different. So these are some of the best ways to troubleshoot. I've got one more slide on that. Okay. So reset your thread and try again. So I don't know if you noticed, but when I was trying to troubleshoot that LinkedIn profile, I kept hitting new topic, because if it tells me it can't do something, it means it's not rooted in the proper context. So start over with a new topic. Sometimes just change a single word. So for example, it will understand, you probably read on a previous slide, like it understands that there are different kinds of banks, for example. A bank is a financial institution versus a bank like on a river. So keep that in mind, that a single word could change it. So maybe it did hallucinate and it started to think of a financial institution when you wanted it to be a river. Just make sure that you give it that context, or that you give it that additional instruction to say, you know, you're doing it this way, or you're thinking of it this way. I need you to think of it or in a different way. All right. So going broader and then trying to get more specific. So this is pretty much what I've been teaching you this whole time. So instead of just saying, give me the SWOT analysis, right? Look at, this is what we're saying. First, tell me about the company. Root your prompt in the context of the information you're trying to get. Make sure that it can get the information that you're trying to analyze or extrapolate from. So first tell me about the company. Now tell me about their financial performance. Now give me a SWOT analysis, right? So, be thinking about that. Don't just come right at it with the context in your head. You have to tell it everything you're thinking. Ask it why it can't do it, right? Why can't you do this? And let it give you the reason for that. Ask it to suggest alternative prompts, right? So I am trying to get this information. Can you give me 3 sample prompts that could get me more information on whatever this is? So have it teach you how to prompt. And then this is the other one, right? Ask other people to try your prompt. And this pops up in Teams. We've got, obviously, I'm one of our Copilot champions at Avanade, and and we do this. We kind of have these chats where it's like, okay, this is what I'm trying to do. Somebody else try this prompt, or try the prompt somewhere else. So let's say you've tried the prompt in Microsoft Word, right? Summarize this document. Compare the results you get in Word with going to M365 Copilot Chat and using that hash mark to reference that file. So compare the results between Word and Chat. So I just did a LinkedIn entry yesterday and used Copilot to help me with that. And I used a combination of what I got from Word and what I got from Copilot Chat. So I typically will start drafting in Copilot Chat, and then I'll copy that into Word, and then I will have Word actually change the tone, reorder one of the favorite things I like to do in Word is I write it, right? Or I start with Copilot with a draft, and then I rewrite it, and then I ask Copilot again, rearrange these sentences so that there's a more logical flow between paragraphs, right? So these are the types of things I want you to really understand and experience inside of Copilot. Think bigger about what it can do for you. It's not just going to search for information, even though it can do that, but let it do the heavy lifting for you. Let it do the research, let it do the formatting, let it do the structure, let it do those things, that it's not so much about saving time for me when I talk about productivity. It's about saving my frustration, right? It's about, I don't know, it's just about trying to make it easier to get to an end result. All right. Any other questions that we have? We are coming up on the end of our content here. I have one more point to make on this slide.
No other questions yet. I'd say
okay.
Leave them to the end. Yeah.
All right. You're sick of hearing it, but it is the most important thing I can tell you. You have got to root your prompt within the context of the information that you're trying to extrapolate from. So look at both of these pictures on the right hand side. And you can already start to see how different the prompt must have been, but they are both pictures of trees, right? So the one on the left might have been exactly what you wanted. If you prompted that you wanted a drawing of a tree the way a child would draw it. Now, there may even be some bias by using the word child. Do you want a 4-year-old child or do you want a 5th grade child? Because those two age groups are going to have different motor skills. So this is what I'm saying. You have to prompt yourself out of the bias. And sometimes the best way to do that is to do a simple prompt and see where it's biased. So just go out and tell it to give you a drawing of a tree and see what it does. And then play with that prompt and say, in the style of Ansel Adams, right? Or in the style of a child, a 5th grade, child, right? So when you're trying to get this information back, notice that the word drawing just apparently gives you pencils, right, on the screen. So, so you may want to say in that prompt, don't show any pencils or whatever it is. So anyway, prompt for the results you want. And then, of course, be patient. All right, let me see. I don't know if these hyperlinks will come through, but let me try to put this in Q&A and you guys let me know if they come through. Let's see. It looks like they're going to come through.
I'll check now.
Yeah, check and see. But basically, I have done all of the Microsoft Learn courses. Yeah, I've done all of them so that you don't have to. These are the ones that I would stick with. Getting started. That second one is really good. Just I mean, even if you're not an I don't know why they decided to call it an executive's guide. It's great information for everybody. How to summarize and simplify information, how to create draft content, how to edit and transform content, and then ask questions and analyze content. So these are my favorite ones. But it's 2, 3, 4, it's 5 hours of your time. But if you really want to get good at prompting, it's worth that investment of time. The other thing is that I didn't particularly go into, but there are about 5 different, what do they call them? Like frameworks. So you can actually ask Copilot, what are 5 different prompting frameworks? And it's like if you ever learned how to do like a SMART goal, right? SMART, they all stand for something. There are frameworks for prompting. So you could even say that what I did here, right? This was a framework, goal, context, expectations, and source. There are other frameworks that exist out there telling you how to prompt effectively. What I will say is, that find the one that makes the most sense for you, but while you're learning, maybe have that up on a different screen, right, to just kind of remind you until you memorize the framework that works for you. And you stayed till the end. You get to see Ludo. So this is Ludo. He's named after one of the characters or the puppets in Labyrinth. And after I get off this call, I get to go take him to doggy daycare. So if you want to get in touch with me or follow me on LinkedIn, you should be able to find me. I think I'm the only Tiffany Songvalet on LinkedIn. And then go to, or you can email me at tiffany.songvalet@avanade.com. If you would like to have this session given to your folks at work, it's a 1-hour session. And I am willing to make that investment if you would like for me to present this to your organization. So please feel free to take me up on that offer just for participating today. And with that, I am ready to answer more questions if you have them. Yeah.
There's 2 other questions in. So unfortunately, I was late to the party and missed the full explanation for route to your prompt. Any chance of a quick summary?
Oh, yeah. I'm more than happy to repeat it for the 100th time. Okay, so yeah, because it's the most important thing. So when we're talking about routing your prompt, another word for that is just giving it context. So having it summarize a document before you prompt on what you want to get out of that document. That would be routing your prompt. Having it look at a document or having it look at a website, giving it an actual, like narrowing down the whole of the internet into what you actually want it to focus on. So as you start to hear this overabundance talk from Microsoft about agents, that's what they're talking about. What an agent, in its simplest form, what an agent would do is it would take, like, it would look at just one SharePoint library. So you would make sure that you have all of your cleanest documents. So again, I'm going to give you that legal example again because it's the top of my mind. Let's say that you had a SharePoint library that only had approved contracts, that only had contracts that lawyers had reviewed and approved before. And now you want to go find a writer or a paragraph on intellectual property, right? You could have it write you a paragraph or find a paragraph on intellectual property from documents that you know are correct. That is routing your prompt instead of just going out to the internet and saying, go find me, write me an intellectual property thing. That one is going to need far more review. Like, only a lawyer would be able to look at what an LLM comes up with to see if it's right. Now, what I will say is it's usually pretty close, but remember, the hallucination is where it's going to fill in that information if it can't find it within the context. So hallucinations happen when it doesn't understand the context, which is why it's so important to route your prompt.
Tiffany, just a question there. Will we get the presentation deck after the meeting? Would you be able to send me an email of the presentation? I'll put it underneath the recording if that suits.
I would love to share this presentation with you, and don't feel it. Just do it. Like, take it. And this was a train the trainer, and give this to other people. This is the kind of information that's so important for us to get out there.
Perfect. So the next question is, I always have a problem when I ask Copilot to go through my emails to provide me something, even if I explicitly ask him to ignore the marketing or conference invitations or emails I deleted. It still goes through these emails.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing I would say is if you've deleted them, make sure that you've emptied the trash can. But yes, so again, I'm probably going to say things you've already tried, but just so that you can kind of see how I troubleshoot a prompt. So the first thing I would do is I would make sure, instead of telling it to exclude something, which you should be able to do, make sure it knows what to include first. So route the prompt in your inbox, right? So just say, and I would even say, could you even reference a filtered list in your inbox? Like, if there was a way for you to filter it first and then only reference the filtered items. I've never tried that before, but make sure you route it in your inbox and then tell it to exclude your deleted items. Again, if you are lucky enough to have unread email, if you can start flagging your email. So again, right, find ways that you may need to work a little bit differently to get the results you want. But all of that metadata, so categories, right? Maybe you start categorizing things so that you can say, only look through items with the blue category or the whatever blue stands for you. But yes, trying to narrow it down first as opposed to telling it to exclude may give you better results.
Perfect. And then just another one, funny one, perhaps a fun question. Are you polite with Copilot and say please?
Oh, yeah, I did it first. Yeah, I did it first. And there are some frameworks you tell you to do it. So let me tell you again, this legal uh uh and if anybody wants to know, we have one coming up on May 1st. If you really do want the legal scenarios, then just reach out to me in an IM on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to post that for you. Um, but but he actually learned, and I think it was just off of some framework. He promises it money if it gives him a good result. So it's like, I'll give you $500,000 for a good result, and for some reason that got him a better result, right? So remember, he's a lawyer, so he knows a good result from a bad result, right? And so I think that's what I want you to see. Is I want you to see, you still, like, Copilot will help a knowledgeable person in a much different way than it will help somebody who's just getting started in something. So but yeah, you can be polite, but from everything I've seen, it does not change the results, other than if you just want to get in the habit of, of just of interacting with a computer or an AI model in a respectful way. As we grow and develop in AI, that may become more and more important. But from what I've seen, um, go back and forth with that reward thing, because that one is kind of funny to watch how different the result is when you promise it a reward that it couldn't possibly use.
Perfect. So it looks like that they're all the questions. So on behalf of the ESBC community, we'd like to extend a big thank you to you again, Tiffany, for taking time out today to carry this webinar. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
So that's the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. Thanks again for all of you for joining us today, and hope you join us again soon. Take care.